Admiral Kethvar stood on the bridge of the Galactic Council's flagship, watching the tactical display with growing unease. 300 ships from 12 different species formed the largest military force the galaxy had ever assembled. They were here to put an end to humanity's expansion once and for all. The humans have only 47 ships, reported Commander Zix, his insectoid features clicking with satisfaction. This will be over quickly. Kethvar wasn't so sure. In his 2 centuries of military service, he had learned to respect any species that survived to reach the stars. Humans had done more than survive. In just 50 years since first contact, they had established colonies on 17 worlds and built a fleet that, while small, had never lost a battle. The Galactic Council had tried diplomacy first. They offered humanity junior membership, restricted to 3-star systems, and limited military forces. The humans had politely declined. They preferred to chart their own course through the galaxy. That refusal had sparked fear among the older species. The Altarians had controlled galactic politics for 1,000 years. The Zephyrians dominated trade routes. The Nexus Collective managed technology sharing. None of them wanted competition from an aggressive new species. "Sir, we're receiving a transmission from the human fleet," announced Lieutenant Voss from Communications. "Put it through." The main screen flickered to life, showing a human woman in a simple blue uniform. She appeared young by human standards, though Kethvar knew their lifespans were frustratingly short. Her dark hair was pulled back in a practical style, and her brown eyes held no trace of fear. "I'm Admiral Sarah Chun of the Terran Federation Navy. You've entered our territorial space with a hostile fleet. I'm required to give you one opportunity to withdraw peacefully." Commander Zix's mandibles clicked in amusement. One human presuming to threaten 300 ships. Their arrogance knows no bounds. Kethvar raised a hand for silence. There was something in the human's voice, a quiet confidence that reminded him of predators from his home world just before they struck. "Admiral Chun," he replied, "I am Admiral Kethvar of the Galactic Council Fleet. Your expansion threatens the stability of our civilization. We're here to enforce the Council's decision that humanity must accept restricted membership or face the consequences." Chin's expression didn't change. "We've already given our answer. We choose freedom over comfortable cages. You have 10 minutes to begin your withdrawal. After that, we'll consider your presence an act of war." The transmission ended. Silence filled the bridge. Then, Commander Zix began what sounded like laughter. 10 minutes? What do they think they can accomplish in 10 minutes against our forces? Kethvar studied the tactical display. The human ships were arranged in a seemingly random pattern, spread across a wide area of space. Most galactic naval doctrine favored tight formations that concentrated firepower. The human deployment looked almost casual. "Sensors, what can you tell me about their ship configurations?" he asked. The sensor operator, a gray-skinned Vorthan, manipulated her controls with 4 arms simultaneously. "Strange readings, sir. Their ships appear to be running minimal power signatures. We're detecting standard fusion reactors, but the energy output is much lower than expected for vessels of that size. Weapons, basic kinetic systems, some missiles. Nothing that should pose a significant threat to our shielding." Kethvar frowned. Either humans were incredibly foolish, or they were hiding something significant. In his experience, species that survived long enough to reach space rarely did anything without good reason. The 10 minutes passed without any movement from either fleet. Commander Zix was practically vibrating with eagerness to begin the attack. The other council species had promised significant rewards for the commander who ended the human threat. "Sir," came another voice from Communications, "we're receiving surrender terms from the human fleet." "Surrender?" Zix's voice rose an octave. "They're surrendering already? How disappointing." But Kethvar noticed something odd in the communication officer's tone. "Display the message." Admiral Chen appeared again, but this time she wasn't alone. Behind her stood dozens of other humans, all wearing the same blue uniforms. Their faces showed no defeat, only grim determination. "Members of the Galactic Council Fleet," Chen began, "you've chosen to ignore our peaceful withdrawal option. What you're about to witness is not surrender. It's a demonstration of why humanity has never lost a military engagement." She paused, and, for the first time, Kethvar saw emotion in her eyes. Not fear or anger, but something far more dangerous, pity. For the past 50 years, every species in the galaxy has made the same mistake. You've judged us by your own standards, your own limitations, your own fears. You see our small fleet and assume weakness. You see our young civilization and assume inexperience. You see our desire for freedom and assume arrogance. Chun stepped closer to the camera. You're wrong on all counts. We aren't weak, inexperienced, or arrogant. We're human. And now you'll learn what that means. The transmission ended, and immediately alarms began blaring across the council fleet. Sir, the sensor operator called out in panic. Massive energy spikes from all human vessels. Their power signatures just increased by a factor of 10. Kethvar's blood ran cold. How is that possible? I don't know, sir. It's like they were running on backup power and just activated their main systems. On the tactical display, the human ships began moving. But they didn't move like any vessels Kethvar had ever seen. They accelerated impossibly fast, their formations shifting and flowing like a school of predatory fish. Weapons systems online, reported the tactical officer, targeting the nearest human vessel. Wait, Kethvar commanded. Something was very wrong. In 3 centuries of galactic warfare, he had never seen ships move with such precision and speed. What's their acceleration rate? Impossible, sir. They're pulling maneuvers that should crush any known organic crew. They're moving at forces that would turn most species into liquid. The first human ship reached weapons range of the Council's forward elements. What happened next would be discussed in military academies for generations to come. Instead of the expected kinetic rounds or missiles, the human ship released what looked like a cloud of tiny sparks. The sparks spread out in a perfect sphere, and each one seemed to move with purpose. What are those? Demanded Zix. The answer came when the sparks reached the nearest council vessel, a heavy cruiser from the Nexus Collective. The sparks didn't explode or burn through armor. They simply touched the ship's hull, and the entire vessel went dark. The destroyer's wind just lost all power, reported communications. They're not responding to hails. More human ships released more clouds of sparks. Each cloud moved toward a different council vessel with deadly precision. Ship after ship began going dark as the sparks made contact. Sir, the tactical officer's voice shook with confusion. I'm reading massive electromagnetic pulses from each of those spark clouds. But the pattern doesn't match any known technology. Kethvar watched his fleet being systematically disabled by an enemy using weapons he had never seen or imagined. The humans weren't destroying the council ships. They were simply turning them off. Return fire. Zix screamed. All ships, open fire. The council fleet responded with everything they had. Plasma beams, kinetic rounds, energy torpedoes, and fusion warheads filled space with deadly light. Any one of those weapons could destroy a city. Together, they carried enough firepower to crack a planet. The human ships flowed through the barrage like dancers avoiding raindrops. They moved in ways that defied physics as Kethvar understood it, turning and accelerating without regard for momentum or inertia. How are they doing that? He whispered. The sensor operator was frantically working her controls. Sir, I'm detecting some kind of gravitational distortion around each human ship. It's like they're manipulating space itself. More sparks filled the void. More council ships went dark. The humans weren't just winning. They were demonstrating complete technological superiority while barely seeming to try. Then, the real demonstration began. One human ship, slightly larger than the others, moved to the center of the battle space. It came to a complete stop, hanging motionless while council weapons fire converged on its position. The beams and projectiles struck some kind of barrier around the ship and simply vanished. Not reflected or absorbed, but erased as if they had never existed. Impossible, breathed Zix. From the stationary human ship, a single beam of pure white light reached out and touched the council flagship's main weapons array. The beam lasted less than a second, but when it faded, the entire weapons section of Kethvar's ship had been surgically removed, cut away so precisely that the remaining hull showed no heat damage or stress fractures. Shields and weapons offline, reported tactical. No structural damage to the rest of the ship. It's like they used a precision cutting tool the size of a moon. Kethvar stared at the tactical display. In less than 10 minutes, his fleet of 300 ships had been reduced to floating hulks or or had fled in panic. Not a single human vessel showed damage. They had demonstrated technology so advanced that the Council's best weapons were merely an inconvenience. Admiral Chen's voice filled the bridge again. Admiral Kethvar, this is Admiral Chun. As you can see, we've disabled your fleet without casualties. Your ship's life support and emergency systems remain functional. We're transmitting navigation data to guide you back to Council space. Kethvar found his voice. What did you do to us? We showed you a fraction of what human military technology can accomplish when we decide to stop holding back. For 50 years, we've been using civilian-grade equipment and restricting ourselves to conventional tactics. We thought it was only fair to give other species a chance to compete. The implications hit Kethvar like a physical blow. You've been deliberately limiting your capabilities. Every single engagement you've witnessed, every battle report you've studied, every assessment of human military strength has been based on us using training equipment and fighting with one hand tied behind our backs. Chen's image leaned forward. We're explorers and builders by nature. We prefer to solve problems through cooperation and innovation. But we're also survivors who spent millennia learning to defend ourselves on a world that was constantly trying to kill us. The screen showed images of Earth, vast oceans filled with predators, weather systems that could flatten cities, volcanic eruptions, earthquakes, ice ages, and asteroid impacts. It showed the rise and fall of human civilizations, countless wars, and the gradual development of technologies that could harness the power of stars. Every challenge made us stronger, more adaptable, more creative. By the time we reached space, we had already survived everything our home world could throw at us. Building weapons that could defeat galactic fleets was simply another engineering problem. Kethvar looked around his bridge at the faces of his crew. They showed the same expression he felt. The dawning realization that they had just witnessed something that changed everything they thought they knew about their place in the galaxy. What happens now, he asked. Now you return to the Council and tell them what you've seen. Tell them that humanity doesn't want to conquer the galaxy. We want to explore it, learn from it, and add our own contributions to galactic civilization. But we'll do it as equals, not as junior members following someone else's rules. The white beam reached out again, and suddenly, Kethvar's ship was moving, not under its own power, but being gently pushed by forces he couldn't understand. Around him, the other disabled Council vessels began moving as well, all heading back toward Council space. We're giving you safe passage home, Chen continued. Use this time to think about what kind of galaxy you want to live in. One where might makes right, and the strong dominate the weak. Or one where different species work together because they choose to, not because they're forced to. As his ship was pushed away from the battle site, Kethvar could see the human fleet reforming. They moved with casual precision, their impossible technologies working in harmony. But what struck him most was how few of them there were. 47 ships had just demonstrated the ability to defeat the entire combined military might of 12 galactic civilizations. And they had done it without causing a single casualty. Admiral, came a tentative voice from communications. We're receiving similar reports from across the galaxy. Human fleets have appeared at Council facilities throughout known space. They've disabled every major military installation and fleet base without firing a shot in anger. Kethvar closed his eyes. This wasn't just a demonstration of military superiority. It was proof that humans had been watching, waiting, and preparing for this moment for decades. They had known this confrontation was coming, and they had been ready. How many humans are there? He asked quietly. Unknown, sir. But if they've been hiding this level of technology for 50 years while maintaining peaceful contact with dozens of species, then everything we thought we knew about them was wrong. On the screen, Admiral Chen spoke once more. Tell the Council that humanity extends an offer of genuine partnership. Not the kind where we pretend to be weaker than we are, but honest cooperation between equals. We have much to offer, and much to learn. The transmission ended, leaving Kethvar alone with his thoughts as his ship continued its involuntary journey home. Behind them, the human fleet dispersed as quietly as they had arrived, leaving only empty space and the memory of what they had witnessed. For the first time in galactic history, a species had demonstrated the power to conquer everything and chosen instead to offer friendship. Commander Zix finally broke the silence. Sir, what do we tell the council? Kethvar looked at the tactical display one more time. The readings still showed impossible acceleration rates, gravitational manipulation beyond known physics, and weapons that could surgically disable starships without harming their crews. We tell them the truth, he said, that we've just met a species that makes the rest of us look like children playing with toys. And that species is offering to be our friend. The question now was whether the galaxy was wise enough to accept that friendship or foolish enough to force humanity to demonstrate what their full military might could really accomplish. As they traveled home through the quiet void of space, Kethvar suspected that answer would determine the fate of every civilization in the galaxy. The emergency session of the Galactic Council had been in session for 6 straight days. Representatives from 43 species sat in the massive chamber on Nexus Prime, their voices creating a cacophony of fear, anger, and confusion that echoed off the ancient walls. High Chancellor Vexthul called for order with his ceremonial staff, its crystal head chiming against the resonance stones built into the floor. The assembled delegates gradually fell silent, their attention focused on the floating hologram at the center of the chamber. The hologram showed Admiral Kethvar's official report, complete with sensor readings, tactical data, and recorded communications from the human demonstration. Every detail had been verified by 12 independent intelligence agencies. Every conclusion had been reviewed by the galaxy's finest military minds. The humans had effortlessly disabled the largest fleet ever assembled while demonstrating technologies that shouldn't exist. The evidence is undeniable, Chancellor Vexthul announced, his ancient voice carrying the weight of 1,000 years. Humanity possesses military capabilities that exceed our combined forces by an order of magnitude we cannot measure. Ambassador Kesh of the Altarian Empire rose from his seat, his golden robes rustling with indignation. This changes nothing. We cannot allow a single species to hold such power over the galaxy. If we cannot defeat them through conventional warfare, we must find other methods. Murmurs of agreement rippled through the chamber. The Altarians had ruled galactic politics through a combination of military might and political manipulation for over a millennium. They weren't about to surrender that position to a species that had barely learned to walk among the stars. What other methods? Demanded Ambassador Ural of the Peaceful Setian Collective. Did you not review the intelligence reports? They've been monitoring our activities for decades. They knew this attack was coming before we even planned it. What makes you think we can surprise them now? Kesh's eyes narrowed. There are always ways to pressure a species. Economic sanctions, diplomatic isolation, targeted strikes against their civilian populations. If they truly care about cooperation and peace as they claim, they won't risk innocent lives. The chamber erupted in arguments. Some species supported the Altarian position, believing that humanity's power made them too dangerous to tolerate. Others pointed out that threatening civilian populations would likely provoke exactly the kind of response they wanted to avoid. At the back of the chamber, a new voice spoke with quiet authority. You're making the same mistake your military made. All eyes turned to Dr. Elena Vasquez, the human ambassador to the Galactic Council. She had been sitting silently throughout the debates, observing and taking notes. Now she stood, her simple gray business suit a stark contrast to the elaborate ceremonial garments worn by other delegates. Ambassador Vasquez, Chancellor Vexthul said carefully, you have been granted observer status for these proceedings, but this is a closed session dealing with classified military matters. I'm aware, Elena replied, walking toward the center of the chamber with calm confidence. But since you're discussing strategies for dealing with my species, I thought you might benefit from some perspective. She stopped next to the holographic display showing the fleet engagement. With a gesture, she activated her own projection device. The air filled with new images, human cities, space stations, agricultural worlds, and research facilities spread across 17 star systems. You're looking at the totality of human civilization in space, she said. For billion people living on worlds we've spent 50 years making habitable. Peaceful communities of explorers, scientists, farmers, and artists who left Earth seeking a better future among the stars. Ambassador Kesh scoffed. Exactly what we expected you to say. You're trying to manipulate our emotions by showing us innocent civilians. Elena smiled. But There was something cold in her expression. You misunderstand. I'm not trying to protect them from you. I'm trying to protect you from them. The chamber fell silent. Elena expanded the holographic display, showing detailed statistics and demographic information for each human colony. These aren't civilians hiding behind military protection, she continued. These are citizens of Earth. Every one of them descended from survivors who spent 300,000 years learning to fight for their lives on the most dangerous planet in the galaxy. New images appeared. Earth's predators, natural disasters, and the countless ways the planet tried to kill its inhabitants. Then came images of human history, wars, plagues, famines, and catastrophes that would have destroyed most species but only made humans stronger. Every person on those colonies volunteered to leave their home world and travel to hostile environments light years away. They're not soft civilians. They're pioneers who chose to face the unknown because staying safe wasn't challenging enough. Elena highlighted one particular colony world. New Sparta has a population of 200 million. It's also home to 3 orbital shipyards that can construct dreadnought-class vessels in 14 days. The shipyards are staffed by volunteers who work in their spare time, treating warship construction as a hobby. More data appeared, showing impossible construction rates, resource extraction numbers that defied logic, and industrial capacity that should have required the combined efforts of multiple star systems. New Geneva specializes in medical research, Elena continued. They've developed biological weapons that could sterilize entire worlds in hours. They've also developed the countermeasures to stop them because they wanted to be sure they could protect themselves if anyone else had similar ideas. The delegates were staring at the numbers in growing horror. Each human colony showed capabilities that matched or exceeded major galactic civilizations. Port Liberty focuses on theoretical physics, Elena said, highlighting another world. Last month, as a graduate student project, they successfully created a pocket dimension large enough to hide a moon. They're using it as storage space for their emergency supplies. Ambassador Kesh found his voice. Impossible. No species develops that quickly. You're right, Elena agreed. No species develops that quickly while also maintaining peaceful relations with dozens of other civilizations, exploring new star systems, conducting first contact protocols, and helping younger species learn spaceflight. We've been multitasking. She turned to face the assembly directly. You keep thinking of humanity as a normal galactic species that happens to have good technology. You're wrong. We're not a normal species. We're Earth natives. The hologram changed to show Earth itself, not as a peaceful garden world, but as the evolutionary crucible that had forged humanity. Volcanic eruptions that blocked out the sun for years. Ice ages that turned most of the planet into frozen wasteland. Asteroid impacts that shattered continents. Supervolcano explosions that came close to ending all life. Our planet tried to kill us every single day for 300 millennia, Elena said. Predators, diseases, natural disasters, climate changes, cosmic impacts, mass extinctions. Everything that could go wrong did go wrong, again and again and again. The images showed human civilizations rising and falling, adapting and evolving, becoming stronger with each catastrophe. Cities buried under ice, rebuilt on top of volcanic ash, abandoned to rising seas, and built again with better technology and hard-earned wisdom. We didn't just survive, Elena continued. We thrived. We learned to see every disaster as a puzzle to solve, every threat as a challenge to overcome. By the time we developed spaceflight, we had already faced every possible crisis except alien invasion. She gestured toward the tactical data from Admiral Kethvar's report. So when the galaxy's largest military force showed up to threaten our colonies, our response wasn't fear or anger. It was curiosity. We wanted to see what you could teach us about warfare that we hadn't already learned from trying to survive on Earth. The silence in the chamber was deafening. Elena let them absorb the implications before continuing. The demonstration your fleet witnessed wasn't us unleashing our full military might, she said quietly. It was us showing you our riot control equipment. Ambassador Kesh's face had gone pale. Riot control? Non-lethal systems designed for crowd management and civil disturbances. We've never actually used our military hardware against another species because we've never encountered a threat that required it. Elena activated new displays showing human technology that hadn't been revealed during the fleet engagement. Weapons that could ignite stars, shields that existed in folded space, drives that could move planets, and manufacturing systems that converted raw matter into finished products at the atomic level. This is what we've developed for defense against cosmic threats, she explained. Gamma-ray bursts, rogue black holes, hostile artificial intelligences, reality-altering phenomena. The kind of problems you face when you're explorers pushing into unknown regions of the galaxy. Dr. Therin of the Scientific Vulnari Confederation leaned forward. Are you saying that all human technology we've observed has been deliberately limited? Not deliberately limited, Elena corrected. Appropriately scaled. When you're having a conversation with someone, you don't shout. When you're helping a child learn to walk, you don't sprint. When you're introducing your civilization to galactic society, you don't immediately demonstrate technologies that would fundamentally alter the balance of power. She showed them communication logs from 50 years of human contact with various species. Trade negotiations, cultural exchanges, scientific collaborations, and diplomatic treaties. In every case, humans had carefully matched the technological level of their partners, never revealing capabilities that might cause fear or dependency. We wanted to be good neighbors, Elena said. We wanted to learn from you, share with you, and explore the galaxy together. But we also wanted to be sure that if someone decided we were a threat, we'd be ready to defend ourselves and our friends. Chancellor Vexthal finally spoke. Your friends. Elena smiled, and for the first time it was genuinely warm. Did you think we've been sitting quietly in our 17-star systems for 50 years? We've been exploring, learning, and making contact with species throughout the galaxy, not just the ones represented in this council. The holographic display expanded to show a three-dimensional map of the galaxy. Thousands of star systems lit up with markers indicating human contact and alliance. We've met over 200 species that the Council hasn't discovered yet, Elena continued. Young civilizations developing spaceflight, isolated colonies that lost contact with their home worlds, ancient species that withdrew from galactic politics millennia ago. We've been building relationships based on mutual respect and shared curiosity about the universe. The map showed trade routes, communication networks, and cooperative research projects spanning half the galaxy. Humanity hadn't just been expanding their own territory. They had been creating an entirely separate galactic civilization based on voluntary cooperation rather than hierarchical control. Many of these species have technologies and perspectives that could benefit everyone, Elena explained. But they've been afraid to make contact with the Council because they've heard about species being forced into junior memberships or restricted territories. Ambassador Ural of the Setian Collective looked stunned. You've been conducting unauthorized first contacts for decades. We've been making friends, Elena corrected. Something the Council seems to have forgotten how to do. She highlighted specific examples, a hive mind species that had developed perfect environmental integration, allowing them to restore damaged planets in decades rather than centuries. A crystalline species that could store and transfer vast amounts of information instantly across interstellar distances. A gaseous species that lived in nebulae and had learned to harvest energy directly from stellar wind. Each of these civilizations has something unique to offer, Elena said. But they won't share it with a government that demands submission as the price of membership. The implications were staggering. Humanity hadn't just demonstrated superior military technology. They had revealed an entirely parallel galactic civilization that had been developing outside the Council's knowledge and control. Ambassador Kesh stood again, his voice shaking with rage. This is exactly why humanity must be stopped. You're undermining galactic stability, encouraging rebellion against established authority, creating chaos where there should be order. Elena turned to face him directly. What I'm describing isn't chaos. It's growth. It's change. It's the natural evolution of galactic civilization from a rigid hierarchy controlled by fear into a dynamic network based on mutual benefit. And if we refuse to accept this evolution, Elena's smile faded. Then, you'll discover what human military technology can actually accomplish when we stop being polite. The holographic display changed one final time, showing sensor readings from throughout the galaxy. Human ships had appeared in over 3,000 star systems simultaneously. Not attacking, not threatening, just present, waiting. Every major military installation, every fleet base, every strategic resource in Council space is currently under observation by human forces, Elena announced. We're not occupying your territory. We're not demanding surrender. We're simply making sure you understand the situation clearly. She looked around the chamber, meeting the eyes of every delegate. You have a choice. You can try to maintain your control through force, knowing that humanity now possesses the power to end galactic civilization in hours if we choose to. Or you can accept our invitation to join a truly cooperative galactic community where species work together because they want to, not because they have to. Chancellor Vexthal's voice was barely a whisper. How long do we have to decide? As long as you need, Elena replied. But understand that every day you delay is another day that more species will learn about the alternative we're offering. Eventually, you'll find yourselves ruling over empty space while the rest of the galaxy moves forward without you. She deactivated her holographic displays and walked toward the chamber's exit. At the doorway, she paused and looked back. Humanity spent 50 years learning everything we could about galactic civilization. We studied your history, your cultures, your technologies, and your politics. We learned to respect your achievements and understand your fears. Her voice carried a note of sadness. What we never learned was how to make you trust us enough to see that we were trying to help you become something better than conquerors ruling over subjects. Perhaps this demonstration will finally convince you that we're serious about cooperation. Elena left the chamber, leaving behind 43 delegates who now understood that everything they thought they knew about their place in the galaxy had just changed forever. 6 months after the demonstration that changed galactic history, Admiral Sarah Chun stood in the observation deck of Terra Station, watching ships from dozens of species arrive for the first Galactic Cooperation Summit. The massive space station hung in the void between two star systems, neutral territory that belonged to no single government. Through the transparent aluminum windows, she could see vessels representing civilizations she had only dreamed of meeting during humanity's early days in space. The crystalline ships of the Resonance, who communicated through harmonic frequencies that could travel faster than light. The living vessels of the Verdani, grown rather than built, their hulls breathing with organic rhythms. The geometric perfection of the Axiom Collective's cube ships, each one a mobile research laboratory containing entire universities' worth of knowledge. Not all of the arrivals were from species that had accepted humanity's invitation immediately. Some were council delegates who had finally realized that cooperation offered better prospects than continued isolation. Others were representatives of civilizations so ancient that they had been exploring the galaxy when most current species were still learning to make fire. Nervous? Asked a familiar voice behind her. Chun turned to see Dr. Elena Vasquez approaching with 2 cups of coffee, the aroma instantly recognizable as a blend from Earth's Colombian highlands. Even in the depths of space, humans found ways to carry pieces of home with them. Cautiously optimistic, Chun replied, accepting the coffee gratefully. We've spent 50 years preparing for this moment, but there's a difference between planning for something and watching it actually happen. Through the windows, they could see the newest arrival, a massive vessel that looked more like a mobile city than a spaceship. It belonged to the Eternal Dominion, a species so old that their recorded history predated the formation of the Galactic Council by 10,000 years. They had withdrawn from galactic politics millennia ago, claiming that younger species weren't ready for true cooperation. Their decision to attend the summit had surprised everyone, including humanity. Any word on why the Eternals decided to come? Chen asked. Elena smiled. According to their message, they're curious to observe whether the small mammals from the dangerous world have actually learned wisdom or are simply better at pretending. Chen laughed. Well, that's encouraging. Nothing like having your entire species' maturity evaluated by beings who consider the rise and fall of civilizations to be entertainment. The 2 women stood in comfortable silence, watching the controlled chaos of hundreds of ships from dozens of species navigating the complex orbital patterns around Terra Station. Traffic control was being handled by a joint team of humans, Nexus Collective Logistics Specialists, and hive mind drones who could process thousands of simultaneous conversations without confusion. It was, Chen realized, exactly the kind of cooperative effort that humanity had been hoping to inspire. "Admiral," came a voice from the station's communication system. "We're receiving a priority transmission from the Galactic Council delegation." Chen and Elena exchanged glances. The council had been suspiciously quiet since agreeing to attend the summit. Some human intelligence analysts suspected they were planning a last-minute disruption, while others believed they were genuinely interested in finding a peaceful resolution. "Put it through to Conference Room 7, Chen replied. "Dr. Vasquez, and I will take it there." They made their way through Terra Station's corridors, passing beings from across the galaxy. A group of Zephyrian traders was deep in conversation with human economists about establishing new shipping routes that bypassed traditional council taxation. Altarian scientists were collaborating with their human counterparts on theoretical physics problems that had puzzled both species for decades. Young beings from a dozen different civilizations were attending orientation sessions about galactic history, learning about conflicts and cooperation from multiple perspectives. Conference Room 7 was designed to accommodate the different environmental needs of various species. The lighting could be adjusted across multiple spectrums, the atmosphere could be customized in different sections, and the furniture could reshape itself to accommodate everything from humanoid forms to gas cloud entities. Currently, the room was configured for a standard diplomatic meeting. Chancellor Vexthal appeared on the main screen, his ancient features showing signs of fatigue that Chen hadn't seen during their previous encounters. "Admiral Chen, Dr. Vasquez," he said with formal courtesy. "Thank you for agreeing to this private communication." "Chancellor," Elena replied, "we're honored to hear from you. I hope your delegation's journey to Terra Station was comfortable." Vexthal's expression suggested that comfort hadn't been his primary concern. "Dr. Vasquez, I'll be direct. The Council is prepared to participate in these negotiations, but we need assurance that humanity's position is genuinely about cooperation rather than domination under a different name." Chen leaned forward. "What kind of assurance would satisfy the Council?" "Proof that humans can be trusted with the level of power you've demonstrated. Throughout galactic history, every species that has achieved overwhelming military superiority has eventually used it to impose their will on others. Why should humanity be different?" It was a fair question, and one that humanity had been expecting. Elena activated a holographic display showing detailed records from the past 6 months. "Since our demonstration," she began, "human forces have been present in over 3,000 star systems. We've had the capability to conquer, occupy, or destroy any target we chose. Instead, here's what we've actually done." The display showed incident after incident of human intervention in galactic affairs. But, rather than conquests or demands for tribute, it showed rescue operations, disaster relief, and protection for weaker species. The Kevlar system suffered a solar flare that knocked out their planetary defense grid just as a pirate fleet was approaching, Elena explained. Human ships arrived first and drove off the pirates without asking for payment or territory. The Vorton trade convoy was caught in a gravitational anomaly near the Nexus border, Chen added. Our engineers spent 3 weeks developing a solution to extract them safely. We shared the technology freely with other species so they could handle similar situations in the future. The records continued, medical supplies delivered to plague-stricken worlds, technical assistance provided to species struggling with environmental disasters, and protection offered to young civilizations facing threats from more aggressive neighbors. In every case, Elena said, we provided help without conditions, demands, or expectations of future favor. We did it because it was the right thing to do, and because we wanted to demonstrate what galactic cooperation could accomplish. Chancellor Vexthal studied the data carefully. Impressive, but how do we know this behavior will continue? Power corrupts, as the saying goes. Perhaps humanity is simply playing a long game, building trust before revealing your true intentions. Chen had expected this question too. Because our true intentions aren't hidden, Chancellor, we want to explore the galaxy, learn from other species, and contribute to the growth of galactic civilization. But we want to do it as partners, not as rulers or subjects. She activated her own display, showing humanity's long-term goals and projects. deep space exploration missions to galaxies beyond the local group, research collaborations aimed at understanding the fundamental nature of reality, cultural exchange programs designed to preserve and celebrate the unique heritage of every species. Our vision of the future doesn't include human dominance, Chin continued. It includes human participation in something larger and more wonderful than any single species could achieve alone. Elena added more data to the display. We've been developing technologies that could eliminate scarcity, extend lifespans indefinitely, and allow conscious beings to exist in forms beyond biological limitations. But we're not developing these technologies for humanity alone. We want to share them with every species that's interested in growth and cooperation. The implications were staggering. Post-scarcity economics that could eliminate the resource competition that drove most galactic conflicts. Medical advances that could extend the lifespans of any organic species to match the longevity of beings like Chancellor Vexthal. Consciousness transfer technologies that could allow beings to exist as pure information, exploring the universe without the limitations of physical form. This is what we believe galactic civilization could become, Elena said. Not a hierarchy where some species rule over others, but a community where every being has the opportunity to reach their full potential and contribute to the collective growth of consciousness in the universe. Chancellor Vexthal was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke again, his voice carried a note of something Chin couldn't quite identify. Wonder, perhaps, or hope. And if some species choose not to participate in this vision, then they're free to continue as they are. Chin replied immediately. We're not evangelical about cooperation. We're simply offering an alternative to those who want it. The Galactic Council could maintain its current structure and territory, Elena added. We have no interest in forcing change on species that prefer the status quo. But we also won't prevent other species from choosing different paths. It was, Chin realized, the same principle that had guided humanity's expansion into space. Freedom to choose, with the strength to defend that choice against those who would impose their will on others. The conversation continued for another hour, covering practical details about trade agreements, territorial boundaries, and technology-sharing protocols. But the real negotiation had been completed in those first few minutes, when humanity had demonstrated that their concept of strength included the wisdom to use it responsibly. As the transmission ended, Elena turned to Chun. Think it worked? We'll find out tomorrow when the formal sessions begin, Chun replied. But I think we've shown them that we're serious about cooperation. They returned to the observation deck, where the view had changed dramatically. More ships continued to arrive, but now they were arranging themselves in a complex, three-dimensional pattern that looked almost artistic. Species that had never worked together before were coordinating their movements, sharing orbital space, and creating something beautiful from what could have been chaos. Admiral, came another voice from the communication system. We're receiving a transmission from the Eternal Dominion vessel. Chun and Elena exchanged another glance. The Eternals rarely communicated directly with younger species, preferring to observe from a distance. Put it through here, Chun said. The voice that emerged from the speakers was ancient beyond human comprehension, layered with harmonics that suggested multiple beings speaking in perfect unison. Small mammals from the dangerous world, the voice said, and Chun could hear amusement in the alien tones. We have observed your species for the duration of your presence in this galaxy. We have watched your military demonstrations, your diplomatic efforts, and your interactions with other young civilizations. Chun felt her heart rate increase. The judgment of the Eternals could influence dozens of species who were still undecided about joining the cooperative network. We have seen species rise to dominance before, the voice continued. We have seen them fall to corruption, stagnation, and the inevitable entropy that affects all hierarchical systems. We had not expected to see something different in our remaining years. Elena gripped Chen's arm. Through the windows, they could see the massive Eternal ship beginning to change configuration, its city-like structure reshaping itself into something that looked almost like a flower opening to receive sunlight. You have surprised us, young humans. You have demonstrated that wisdom can indeed emerge from adversity, and that strength can serve growth rather than domination. We will participate in your experiment in cooperative evolution. The implications hit Chun like a physical blow. The Eternal Dominion's endorsement would legitimize the cooperative network in the eyes of every species in the galaxy. Even the most traditional council members would find it difficult to argue against a path that had earned approval from beings who had been observing galactic politics since before most current civilizations existed. Furthermore, the voice added, we will share certain technologies and knowledge that we have held in reserve, waiting for younger species to demonstrate readiness for responsible use. Elena's grip on Chin's arm tightened. The Eternals possessed technologies that predated most galactic civilizations. Their knowledge of physics, consciousness, and the fundamental structure of reality was legendary among the few species old enough to remember their active participation in galactic affairs. We thank you for your confidence, Chin managed to say. We promise that any knowledge you share will be used responsibly and made available to all species in the cooperative network. We know, the Eternal voice replied. That is why we have decided to trust you. Begin your summit tomorrow, small mammals. We are curious to see what you will build together. The transmission ended, leaving Chun and Elena staring at each other in amazement. Did that just happen? Elena whispered. Before Chun could answer, alerts began chiming throughout Terra Station. The communication system crackled with excited voices in dozens of languages as news of the Eternal Dominion's endorsement spread throughout the gathered delegations. Species that had been wavering in their decision to join the cooperative network suddenly found themselves reconsidering. Trade unions that had been skeptical about abandoning established shipping routes began calculating the benefits of access to eternal technologies. Research institutions that had been focused on narrow specializations started planning collaborative projects that could advance knowledge across multiple fields simultaneously. Chen watched the display screens showing real-time communications traffic around Terra Station. The volume of messages had increased by orders of magnitude as species began reaching out to potential partners, sharing information, and proposing joint projects. It was, she realized, exactly what humanity had hoped would happen. Not conquest or submission, but voluntary cooperation motivated by shared curiosity and mutual benefit. You know what this means? Elena said quietly. Chen nodded, still watching the bustling activity around the station. It means we've succeeded. Not at conquering the galaxy, but at giving it the opportunity to become something better than it was. Outside the windows, more ships continued to arrive. Not just the species they had expected, but vessels from civilizations that had been hidden for millennia, beings who had been waiting for a sign that galactic politics could evolve beyond the cycle of domination and rebellion that had characterized the past 1,000 years. The galaxy was changing, Chen realized, not through force or coercion, but through the simple demonstration that cooperation could achieve what conquest never could. The willing participation of beings who chose to work together because they wanted to, not because they had to. Tomorrow, the formal summit would begin. Representatives from hundreds of species would sit down together to design a new framework for galactic civilization. There would be disagreements, compromises, and challenges that none of them could anticipate. But, for the first time in galactic history, they would be facing those challenges as partners rather than competitors. As Chun and Elena stood watching the controlled chaos of preparation outside, a new ship appeared on the horizon. It was small and elegant, its hull marked with symbols that Chun recognized from her studies of galactic history. It was a vessel from the Archive Keepers, the mysterious species that maintained the galaxy's historical records and had remained neutral in every major conflict for the past 5,000 years. Their decision to attend the summit was another sign that something fundamental was changing in galactic politics. Think we're ready for this? Elena asked. Chen smiled, remembering the long journey that had brought humanity to this moment. From a species trapped on a single dangerous world to partners in a galactic community that could reshape the universe itself. Ready or not, she said, this is what we've been working toward for 50 years. Time to find out what humanity and our friends can accomplish when we stop holding back and start building something amazing together. The stars stretched out before them, no longer a frontier to be conquered, but a home to be shared. And for the first time since leaving Earth, humanity was no longer alone in the galaxy. They were part of something larger, something cooperative, and something that had the potential to spread beyond the galaxy itself to touch every corner of the universe where conscious beings sought to grow, learn, and create together. The age of galactic cooperation had begun, and it started with species that had learned to see strength not as a tool for domination, but as a foundation for building something wonderful that none of them could achieve alone.